All right, hey everybody, welcome to this great call tonight. For anybody that's new, I'm not really doing intros, but Marco Barbaro, I'm the leader of MIH Mastermind. This free education, every month, we are bringing you awesome free education that is crucial, not just for multifamily. We're doing business acquisitions and business, everything about businesses now. This is going to be the first business call, and we're going to probably do about 10 of them. So, what are we covering tonight? He's going to be covering Arjun, my friend, is going to be covering a couple topics. How to grow and start a business. Like I said, we're going to do an intro. It's going to be the just tip of the iceberg on it. Grow and start a business. You can your 15-page business plan. You can talk 2-3 hours. And then more importantly, guys, I see Satya out here. I'm going to give you an example before he starts. He's going to talk about buy and sell agreements. That's just one product of like 50 products in business. Me and my brother Satya, you bought a plumbing company. As my accountant would talk to me, my accountant's very smart. He's like almost like my law. He's basically like my trust lawyer, my everything. When me and my brother had the restaurant, our restaurant was valued at $1 million, the amount of sales we were doing. Okay. So my accountant said, he introduced us to my financial guy. My financial guy and my accountant got together and we got a buy-sell agreement on it. So now if we didn't, it was very affordable too. If we didn't get, he's going to go into it, but I just want to give you an example. If I didn't get the buy-sell agreement, this is the risk he'll go into. Say I pass away. All of a sudden, my brother and my wife are now partners. And my wife has no idea how to run a business, how to cook in the restaurant. She was a stay-at-home mom. So we ended up getting a buy-sell agreement that was valued at like we did 500,000 me, 500,000 Gino. So if I passed away, the insurance would pay my brother, pay my wife $500,000, and my brother would inherit the restaurant. And now he's not tied to my wife as having her as a partner. Maybe they don't like each other. But then why does my wife have to be a partner and get paid and not work? So that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many variations to it, guys, by the way. So many different products. But me and Gino had it on the restaurant, and we had it on our family also. Then in our Tennessee properties, I think Jake might have something for us on it. I'm not sure. I got to ask Jake. But if you guys are, the reason I did this call is if you guys are buying businesses, I don't want you guys to go in blind with partners like Satya and Abhishek right now. You guys bought a plumbing business. Satya, if something happens to Abhishek, you are now partners with his wife. Maybe she's a stay-at-home mom. Maybe she's an engineer and she's in IT and she can't help you. So there's gonna be a lot of intros tonight. You guys gonna ask questions, and I know people are afraid to ask questions. Sometimes they're embarrassed. You guys really need to network with my buddy Arjun. First of all, because in the mastermind we build relationships, and you can learn a lot from him, especially if you guys want to start looking at businesses. But even for other stuff, he's taking care of my other financial guys. I have 2 whole life policies with my other financial guys. He's taking care of whole life for my kids. So I have whole life for my 3 daughters. My brother does 60,000 a year. He does 10,000 a kid on his kids. I do a little less. But there's so much. This is just 2 topics. In about 6 months or 5 months after I do a few more, Arjun's going to come back and cover another topic, which is pertinent to business. I looked at like 10 of his presentations, and I'm going to pick the one that's very I feel is going to be really good for you guys in multifamily and buying businesses. Okay. So in saying that, one last thing, I don't know if Rob Moose is on here. I saw Jen. We have a 17-unit JV A class, 2.8x multiples, 16-18% IRRs in Kingston, PA. We have like 1 spot left on the JV. I think it's like a 100K spot or somewhere around there on the whole thing. We filled it. Nick Rizanti's doing a $300,000 to $280,000 1031. We have another 1031. So people really believe in this deal. If you want to hear more about this deal, reach out to me or Jennifer. Let's see what else. Talk about my brother. And that is it. It is 7:39. I told you I was going to be quick. I'm going to hand it over to you, Arjun. I would like you to introduce yourself, share your screen, take it away. Do it. And if you need me, I'm right here.
Marco, thank you, and good evening, everyone. Can you people hear me?
Yep.
Marco? Okay.
Yeah.
So firstly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to being part of this great group that you've got together this evening. To tell you a little bit about myself, my name is Arjun Bhandari, and I work for Coastal Wealth, which is a mass mutual company. Um, I'm a banker by background. I've been a banker for about 25 years, and I worked in Asia and in Europe, and since 2010 in America. Um, after I left Deutsche Bank, after 25 years at Deutsche Bank, I moved on just for COVID and was trying to figure out what I should do next. And that's when I thought I could become a financial advisor and use my knowledge to try and help people, especially people who are trying to get into business or try and establish their business. Because I thought most of the businesses, that fail or don't do well, you know, one of the main reasons is the problem with finance. Okay, and I just felt that I could maybe share my experiences with people and help them get established. So that's when I, joined Mass Mutual. I use them as my broker dealer platform, and I am now doing all financial advisory services. Okay. Um, so let me. So today we're going to be speaking on two topics, like Marco said. One is how do you establish and grow a business? Okay, and then the second part of this presentation is the importance of buy sell. So the first part is how do you grow the business, and the second part is how do you get away from the business in the right way. Okay, because you do a lot of hard work to establish your business, and if your dismount is not properly planned, you're not going to get the value that you really need. Okay, so let me get my presentations up and let me share my screen. All right, so can you see my screen? Thumbs up, Marco.
I can't.
All right. Okay, so that's me, Arjun Bhandari, and that's my
Arjun,
telephone number.
I can't see the screen. Stop share and share again.
Yeah, I cannot.
Yeah, we cannot, I can't see it either.
I don't think anybody can.
There-
There you go.
There
you
we go. Thanks.
All right, my fault. I didn't press the share button.
We got you now.
All right. Okay. Okay. So that's me, and that's my email address and telephone number. Just a disclosure that I need to put up that I'm not giving you any tax or legal advice. What I'm talking about is just some concepts which we're going to discuss. The two concepts, Marco has already spoken about. Okay, so the first one that we're going to speak about is starting and growing a business. Okay. So when we are getting into business, there are basically three types of people who get into a business. You can either do a job or you do a business. Now, why do people get into business? They either get into business because they love what they do, or they're too independent. They can't do a 9 to 5, and they can't take orders. They think that they're too independent minded, or then they are really very focused and very confident of what they can create, and they are not satisfied with what a job would actually give them. So just think a little bit about which category you fall in and why you're in this business, because when things start going wrong, then that's when you have to go back and think about why did you get into this journey, right? 43% of the people who actually are going to start, Americans are going to start a business, there's going to be a variety of reasons as to why they get in. It's a combination. Normally, it's independent lifestyle, it's your cash, it's your passion, or sometimes it's just family expectations, right? You come from a business family and you just want to, do what the family does. I don't know how to play this video because I guess you people are already in the business, so we'll skip out of this. But what I want to talk about is when you're getting into a business, you've got to start getting the infrastructure right. It's very similar to what you're doing when you're building a building, right? Constructing a house. Depending on how big you want your house to be, you'll choose the foundations. So choosing the entity structure is very important. And um, as Marco was saying, and I'm reiterating, it's very important to work in a team, to have an accountant, to have a lawyer, to have a financial advisor who you discuss what the entity structure could be. I mean, you can go from the very basic, which is just a sole proprietorship where you own it. It's very easy to set up. You get all the profits, you take all the losses. Or you can go into a partnership where you start sharing profits and losses, right? You could have a general partnership or you could have a limited partnership. Or then you could get into into the world of corporations where it could be a C Corp or an S Corp. All these structures, or you could go in for an LLC. Now, when you are on the drawing board stage of saying, hey, I want to set up a business, you've got to think about what you really want to do. And how big is this business going to be? How much money are you going to put into it? Is it going to be international? How much liability are you going to take? And what are you going to do to protect yourself? So this is a kind of a serious conversation that you're going to have, because if you have the wrong structure, then either you're paying too much on taxes or you're taking too many liabilities, or you're not going to be able to raise money that you really need to raise, right? So getting this structure right is very important. The other thing is that we all want to get into business, and this, after being a banker for 25 plus years, I've seen that businesses that plan their finances well do well. They may not have the best idea, but if they are very strong infrastructurally and finances plays a big part in it, they are successful. You may have the best idea, but if you don't have the right infrastructure in place, especially your finances, that's not working. Important statistic, 58% of the businesses that get started in the US, people start with just $25,000. And how do they start it? Where does this financing come from? 77% comes from personal savings. So it's people who are investing their own money. 35% access bank loans. 25% stay in the friend and family arena. And you can see that the angel, venture, and crowdfunding is not even 2 to 3%. So when you are when you're thinking of your business, you've got to start thinking of your finances as well, and where's money going to come from? Because if you don't have that properly taped up, this is not really going to work. Okay, I'm going to play a little bit of I'm just going to play a little video, which basically talks about how difficult it is to actually get bank finance to work. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just hear it.
Guys, raise your volume if it's not loud enough. Okay, just increase your volume, then lower it when he comes back on.
Yeah.
We went out to several banks here, regional banks, and we had tried to obtain financing, and we were shot down 3 times.
It has been a challenge to get loans. Basically, it was pretty much a cash business when we started.
To start with the business, we, partners and myself have used money out of our own pocket, and by getting projects and being successful on certain projects, I kept putting money back into the organization, and we used that for the organization to grow.
And we just felt like, what do we have to do? Everybody said you had to be in business 18 months. And we're like, listen, the Small Business Administration is supposed to be here to help small business. It should help us. And there was so much red tape and hoops we had to jump through that once we found the right banker to talk to the right people, and he said, I think we can make this happen.
So working with the SBA has some great benefits. It also has some frustration. There is a bureaucracy in terms of getting loans. I can't say there isn't. And in fact, a lot of it depends on the banker.
We went to the SBA over a dozen times, had to give them more information. And after 8 months of trying, we were finally around the 18-month mark of the corporation. We were able to achieve a line of credit through the Small Business Administration.
What you should ask when you go into the bank and to the SBA is, show me a list of all the things I have to produce. What pieces of paper do you want? And if you know it up front and you can produce it, it's going to streamline the process.
Through dealing with the SBA, the best thing you have is patience. When you think that you've crossed every T and dotted every I, they're going to come back and want you to do something else. We thought we were done 5 times, and that was after giving it 10 times to them.
What are the requirements in terms of documentation? Very often, if it's an ongoing business, the bank asks for an income statement and cash flow for 3 years, and they'll want collateral. Even though it's a business you're getting a loan for, typically they want personal assets pledged.
All 4 partners had to sign on the dotted line, and part of that was every asset that we owned. Next to my name had to be my wife's name. That was not a real pleasant conversation, because then she knew, even though she knew it, that it was for real, now it's for real.
The bank, in order to make the loan, wants something substantial to fall back on if you don't pay. It's true that if you have your house and you have life insurance, you could say, well, I will use life insurance as the first asset that I pledge, and so that protects your house. A lot of people don't have that luxury.
I feel right now that we're at a really comfortable level, especially now that we have the SBA line of credit. That really is kind of another help for us, and we're good where we're at right now.
Okay, so everything that you've just seen on this video is absolutely accurate. I've sat as a banker, and it's not that the bank doesn't want to help. It's just that you have credit committees and you have so many other internal pulls and pushes that sometimes it just becomes really very difficult, and it takes a long time. So if anybody wants to go in, for bank finance, start thinking, very carefully and well in advance. Don't just expect to walk into a bank and get a loan. It won't happen. Okay. Now, the next slide, I'm going to speak a little bit about, which bank do you need to go to? Should you go to a big bank? Should you go to a JP Morgan, or should you go to a regional bank? Now, when you go to a big bank, you may have better technology, you may have more sophistication, but if you see the statistic here, big banks approve 14% of loan applications. So they're very choosy of who they want to work with. And the smaller banks, the percentage is higher. It's 20%. So you got a better chance there. So what are the critical things that a banker really looks at? They're the 6 C's of credit. Okay. The first one is your character. What is your credit history? What is your credit rating? Have you defaulted on a loan? Have you taken a bank loan before and not honored the contracts? Really very important. Then the other thing is, how well you really know your business? How soon will your business start showing a profit? When will you start repaying? Okay. How much capital are you putting into the business? No banker is going to finance 100%. Even the biggest companies don't get 100% finance, right? So they expect you to put in 25, 30%. So you've got to look as to how much you can invest, and then look at what sort of a loan and what sort of business you really want to do. Then collateral. They spoke about this in the video that we've just seen. In spite of taking a business loan, a promoter will have to pledge some assets, his house, personal guarantees, insurances. So that's going to come into play. The other thing that you got to know very well is what exactly are you going to do with the loan? Is the loan going to be used to finance a long-term asset? Is it going for working capital? So, getting all this thought out very carefully and knowing your cash flow is going to determine whether your banker is going to move that credit proposal forward, or he's just going to put it aside and say, you know, we're not going to be able to give you this credit. So this is really important. I'm not going to play this video. It's about debt management, but which everybody should be careful of, but I'm not going to spend time on that. I'm going to talk about the stages of business, because the next topic that we're going to speak about is the buy sell, and then at what point does the buy sell start getting into play. So the first thing is the startup phase. When you're a promoter and you're setting up a business, when you're in the startup phase, normally the first 2 years, that's when the promoter is pushing the business. That's when he's got an idea that he's trying to push. He's financing everything on his own. There's a negative cash flow. That's when, the promoter is really pushing the envelope to try and get the business established. In about 2 years, normally it takes about 2 years to get your operating model in place, to figure out what you really want to do, figure out what your business, what your strategy is going to be. Your cash flow start changing, you start developing some sort of a management team, and that's when your business is at a takeoff stage. You start doing well, getting market share, and then you move into a mature sort of a phase when you're well established, you have got a lot of goodwill. The promoter at that stage is normally, thinking of his next venture. He's got professional managers in place, and there's a positive cash flow going on in the business. And then we move into the transition phase when the promoter starts thinking, hey, okay, I've made my money, I've done whatever I had to do, I've achieved my objectives, and now how do I sell? How do I wind? How do I cash in on this? So that's the transition phase. So knowing which phase of the business you're in is also very important, because you should be planning your management and whatever you need to do accordingly. I'm not going to play these videos, but when is it time to try and grow the business? That's a question, that the first thing is, what does your gut tell you? As a promoter, you're in this business because you had a strong belief in yourself. And is the fire in the belly? You really feel that you can make that happen? That's important. Okay. And then, do you have the money to basically get launched? You may not obviously have the money for everything, but do you have something to get this on the road? What sort of infrastructure have you built up? I spoke about the team. I spoke about everything that we really need to have in place. Do you have your infrastructure to actually get to the phase where you can actually start aggressively marketing? Okay, if you don't have the right infrastructure, you can't do it. How are your customers reacting to you? Do you have their goodwill? Can you sense the opportunity? And you get into the growth phase. You see, normally when you're started, you'll have concentration risk. That is not a good thing to be in, right? You want your business to be diversified. You want many clients. So you don't want to be in that phase.
Arjun, let me talk about my restaurant real quick, and restaurant business models. Real quick, don't lose your train of thought. So guys, and this goes for other businesses too. So when I started my restaurant in 1995 with my brother, the first 2 years are the worst years. And I don't want to curse, but you have to eat a lot of crap. I'll keep it light. 24 years of starting a business are going to be, I don't care what business you start. Maybe you're a master. I'm going to warn you right now, your life's going to suck. And if you think it's not, then you're not starting the right business. It's the first 24 months is very, very hard. Expect it to be. You want it to be hard. It's okay. You're starting something that you need to grow. from nothing. So I'll give you the whole path of 7 years. What I'm talking about. So year one, you have to hire a lot. I went in with Gino. We hired, and we tried to vet, and so we didn't have our core team. Year two, I started to see who was not that great. I started to weed out and strengthen the team. I could get rid of one, hire one, get rid of two, hire one. Some people would quit. And sales year one were okay. The menu was basic. Sales in year two were getting a little better. I started doing some more specials, some catering. Sales at year three, and my staff was getting really good. Year 4 and 5 is like peak. Year 4 and 5, I crushed it. Year 6 and 7 starts to kind of like plateauish there at like, I'm hitting my peak in year 5 of expansion, like really, really good. And year 4 and 5, I have a really good core team at the restaurant. Me and Gino are crushing it. I'm expanding catering. I started delivering. You know, I didn't deliver in the beginning. I couldn't handle it. And then I started doing in year 10, I started doing cook classes. So now I'm going to say something very important in the restaurant business. If anybody opens a restaurant, I was open for 25 years. That's very unique. The shelf life of a restaurant nowadays that goes in, because it evolved. These millennials like to go out Friday and Saturday and have tapas and drinks. Family mom and pops are disappearing. You're seeing a lot of fast food chains and cheesecake factories. Mom and pops are getting crushed. Marco and Gino, Trattoria restaurants are getting eaten up by by these big corporates. So nowadays, I lasted 25 years, and I would have been there another 30 because I did cooking classes, marinara sauce, cutting knife sets, cookbooks. I catered the tri-state area, LaGuardia Airport, Sloan Kettering. I was not if you don't do that, these mom and pops will not last more than 7 years. The shelf life. So one of my friends in White Plains, he gets to year 7, he closes the restaurant, changes the granite on the bar, changes the tables, changes the menu, opens up as a different name, and he rebrands it. And the people in White Plains are like, wow, there's a new restaurant in town. It's the same owner. It's actually genius. You guys, I mean, did you see that right now, guys? If I didn't tell you this, you would not know the shelf life of a restaurant is probably 7 years. First 2 years, very tough. Year 3 and 4, growth. Year 5, peak growth. Year 6 and 7, you're plateauing. Year 8, close, change everything, open a new restaurant. That's what I would do. If I had to go back in the restaurant business now, I wouldn't do Gino's Trattoria. I would do that. I would open up somewhere here, and I would do it for 7 years, close it down, gut the place. I would redo the inside. Not a lot of money, just maybe $100,000 on the inside. Open up with a different menu, different concept. I would not do a 25-year restaurant like I had, or a 30-year restaurant, because you need to keep it. There needs to be a buzz every year in the restaurant, and you have to have raving fans, as Tony Robbins teaches. So if there's no buzz in the restaurant, in year 10, it gets flat, and people are like, oh, let's go to the new place down the road. It's nicer, similar food, and there's a buzz. So after 5, 6, 7 years, the buzz starts to wear off. That's why I kept the buzz going with cooking classes, special catering, backyard barbecues, weddings. So you understand that's very important in this starting and growing a business. You have to know the business that you're starting, what's the shelf life? Vending machines. We're doing healthy vending machines. The healthy food now, instead of the junk food vending machines, is hotter. So that's very important. Arjun, sorry, get back to you. I think you're a perfect product.
No, Marco, what you're saying is absolutely right. And this is what I'm saying, is that are your customers asking for it, right? Mm-hmm. You have a perfect product market fit. So what you're saying is you're basically validating what I'm trying to tell everybody, that look, these are the signs you've got to look for. And if they don't exist, you cannot go to that growth phase, right? You cannot go from startup to growth. And that's what you actually said, and you've very eloquently explained it to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, so basically, what this one is, I'm almost at the end, so the last slide. But what I will tell you is that don't forget why you've gone into this business. Okay, that is very important. So that will keep the fire in the belly going. Make sure you have the right infrastructure. So getting the entity structure is very important. Getting your funding right is very important. And get to the point where you actually know when you're getting to the launch phase. Sorry. When should you really accelerate? you really got to know your customer. You've got to know what's going on. You've got to be there all the time. Okay. So that is what I had for this presentation. I'm going to stop sharing and get up the other presentation. I don't know. Marco, if you want to, any
Take your time.
comments from your side?
Yeah, no, take your time. So, guys, what I was talking about, I hope you wrote down a couple notes. We recorded this. If you're looking at businesses, you need to look at the shelf. I know the shelf life of a restaurant in and out. Now, my friend that's doing that, it's freaking genius. You know, like I said, I was very, very unique. To have restaurants that last 25 years plus, they're special restaurants. Not many restaurants make it past year. I'd say past year 3 to 4. If a lot of fail by year 3, year 1 and 2 and 3 are the crucial parts. If they do good, they make it to year 4. If they don't, they fail. If a restaurant makes it past year 12 to and gets about 20, that's a special restaurant and that's a special owner, and he's doing something special. Because just selling food ain't going to keep you in business after year 7. Like I said, I catered the tri-state area. I drove from Manchester, New York down to LaGuardia Airport with 4 vans with 1,500 construction workers. So, all right. So now the second part of the presentation. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Marco, thank you. Okay, so this is the second presentation. Again, I'm not giving any tax advice. There's no legal advice here. We're just discussing a concept, right? So what I'm going to talk about here is buy-sell agreements. Marco has kind of spoken about buy-sell agreements. Now, see, when you are setting up a business and you're putting your blood and your sweat into creating something, that's the build-up phase, right? And a lot of your wealth gets tied up into that business. What you have to plan for is the exit. And that's what the buy sell actually does for you. Okay. So it gives you the ability to plan a voluntary or an involuntary departure. Okay. We're going to discuss, I'm going to show, you're going to see a few videos here, but why is this important, okay, to have a buy sell agreement? So again, a very interesting statistic that came up, which really intrigued, was the fact that 75% of the business owners, okay, 1 year after selling their business, regret their decision. Okay, now, so basically, they were not happy with what they did 1 year after they've done their exit. Now, who are the counterparties that get affected? So one is the business owner, right? So either the business owner or his heirs, they've got a lot of expectations from the business. Then on the other side, you have employees. Now, you have created this huge business and this very successful business, and there are some very loyal employees there, okay? They get involved, all right? And their expectations are either met or not met. And then you have your stakeholders, you have creditors, you have lenders, you have business partners. Now, if the exit is not well planned, then you're going to have turmoil with one or all. So it's very important to get this planning correct. So what exactly is a buy-sell agreement? A buy-sell agreement is a legally binding agreement that requires one party to sell and another party to buy a particular ownership interest in a business in the event of a triggering event, such as death, disability of an owner. Now, there are actually 6 events, and here we've just spoken about death or disability. And what should your buy-sell agreement talk about? The first thing is how much one business owner will pay another, okay? So that is basically the valuation of your business. What is the method you have used to value your business? Now, this becomes really important because this is where, a lot of problems get created. And even if there's no problems amongst, the partners, the IRS may come in. And they may say, hey, this is not the right value. Okay. So then how is a buy sell to be funded? Where is the money going to come from? Who is eligible for the payment? And if you have a disability in the buy sell, then what is the definition of a disability? And there's a very interesting video that I'm going to play later on, which speaks about that. So I'm just going to play this video, watch it. Hopefully you can hear.
We actually had a coworker's wedding that weekend, and we were all together that Saturday night.
We walked out together and said, man, it was a great wedding, and it was a really good time. And the agency is really gelling well. We got a great bunch of staff there. I told him, hey, I'll see you on Monday. And on that Sunday, at the time his daughter worked for us, we got a call that he had collapsed.
He had a massive heart attack, so he died immediately. There was no going to the hospital and figuring out what the doctor said. He was pronounced dead at the scene at his house. And I couldn't believe it. I was in total shock. I couldn't imagine going to work. Like, I couldn't think. It was just a block.
I'll never forget that night laying in bed, after, because it happened so suddenly, laying there thinking about all the things that we do. And I think, certainly one of the things is the staff that's here, your employees want to make sure that the company is going to still be around.
And so we immediately had a meeting to talk about the succession plan, and that benefit concept will continue. Everybody has a job. And basically he gave us encouragement. He told us it was going to go on. He told us, we'll get all the help we need and just continue business as usual.
We had an agreement that if something happened to him, then the proceeds went to his spouse and the agency went to me, and vice versa. If something happened to me, basically my practice, my customers went to him, and my wife got the insurance proceeds.
The main reason why you would want to have a buy-sell agreement is if you have one or more partners in a business entity. It's an exit strategy for that partner that wants to leave, for disability, for death, for divorce, and to allow, more importantly, that other member to be able to continue running the business. If there had not been a buy-sell agreement in place, or we had not known that Mark would eventually take over the company, it would have been a horror. I think benefit concepts probably would not exist today. I think what probably would have happened is there would have been a go at it from some of Chuck's family, and I think that would have not been as successful. His wife had no idea how the company was run. Chuck used to like to do everything himself, so I don't think she even had any inkling of an idea how to run the company.
When someone doesn't plan or has a plan that doesn't include the spouse, or doesn't do a good buy-sell agreement, all of a sudden he dies, and his partner is looking across the table at his new partner, who happens to be this guy's wife, and number one, she may not know anything about the business, or number two, he may not like her very much, and he's stuck. I think his spouse could have certainly dragged her feet for as long as she wanted to. She could have left us hanging to try to continue it, and she would have had all the leverage because she would have had all the ownership. I knew his spouse, he knew my spouse, and so collectively both of them signed off on the buy-sell agreement that we had for each other. Really, the risk of it sinking was very low because of the buy-sell agreement.
So,
Okay.
Arjun, hold on 1 second. Just Satya, very OA. To make it simple, me and my brother, once again, we valued our restaurant at $1 million. When you first start a business, you don't know the value, but if you're growing and your business you first started, say it's worth 200,000, not a big deal. You can actually do it more. Like my business was established, say it was worth $1 million. If I passed away and my brother wanted to buy me out and he doesn't have 500,000 liquid in the bank, he can't buy me. He can't give my wife $500,000 and he can't get the business. So he's going to have to stick with having my wife as a partner, or do maybe monthly or yearly buyout or something. but he needs, if he doesn't have the money, he's stuck. If you have the buy-sell agreement, the insurance writes a $500,000 check to my wife, and my brother gets the whole business. That's why we got it, because I want to sleep at night. So do you need it on multifamily? Not always. We had it on our 4-family, but depending on businesses, I think it's crucial. You know, if I do a business with Jay, I will definitely look into it with Jay. Like, do I want to be partners with his wife? Probably not. She's really nice, but I don't know her that well. You know, and she has a full-time job. So go ahead, Arjun, take over.
So Marco, you are
Yeah, so
my
so the question regarding that, is it different than operating agreement? Or can it be part of operating agreement?
Well, operating agreement is not an insurance. The operating
Hmm.
agreement is not going to pay your wife. Is not going to pay your partner. Operating agreement is just a contract that you
Hmm.
put in. If you die, the wife is not the partner. You have to buy him out. Where do you go get the money? You understand?
So Satya, firstly, Marco, thank you so much. You're my,
I got
you're
your
doing
back,
all my
Arjun.
job,
Don't
man.
worry about it. I got your back, buddy.
Marco has all the
You're,
examples.
you're doing everything for me. I don't have to say anything. Okay. So, so what, what I'm going to talk about on this slide is what are the common forms of buy-sell agreements? And look, I've just kept it very simple, high level, but there are three quick ways of doing a buy-sell. So if you have multiple partners, okay, and there are many people, then the entity would get into the buy-sell agreement, right? So if anything happens to the partner, the insurance proceeds go to the company buys out the shares of the partner so that the successor or the heirs could get the money and nobody is out of pocket. Okay, now there are tax implications which take place, when you have this sort of a plan, because the cost basis changes, and that's why I say that when you're doing these things, you've got to do this with your accountant, with an advisor, so that you're getting the right structure. Okay, so the other one is a cross purchase. Now, what Marco was speaking about was a cross purchase. If you have 2 or 3 partners, then you do a cross purchase. If something happens, the insurance company just writes a check to the other partner and says, okay, here's your money. This is the value of your business, and the shares go to the other partner. And everybody is happy, and nobody has to, make any distress sales, no negotiations. Everything is agreed. Insurance company is sending the check. And then there's another way that another buy-sell agreement that I want to talk about, which a lot of people are not aware of, and that's for a sole proprietor. So you don't actually have to have a buy-sell agreement only if there are multiple owners. Even if you're a sole proprietor and you want to do something, you've got so many stakeholders in your business. Okay, you can do a one-way buy-sell agreement. So if something happens to you, your estate, your heirs get the stated value. Okay, so a lot of people are not aware of this. A lot of people say, hey, I have no owner, I have no partner, so why should I do anything? Who's going to buy your business? What is the value of your business? What is your wife or your children? What are they going to do? They don't understand the business. Are you going to do a distress sale? So, this is what comes up very often, and yeah, I thought I should just put this up as well.
Arjun, I have a question from Jay, my really good friend and partner. Is insurance a part of buy-sell agreement, or do you need to buy? I can't read what it says. Do you need to buy agreement and insurance?
So when you do the buy sell, okay, so buy sell is just an agreement, right? Marco, you and I can have a buy sell agreement. Hey, this is the value of our business. The main thing is, where's the money going to come from? And I'm going to speak about these things, as the presentation goes on. The main thing is, where's the money going to come from? How will one partner pay the other partner? Okay, so that becomes a moot point always. So what are the red flags? This slide, I'm going to talk about the red flags that come up when people are doing buy sell agreements, right? They think, hey, I want to have a buy sell agreement. So fine. If at the planning stage, right from the get-go, you've got the wrong entity structure. Okay, your buy-sell agreement may not be be efficient. Okay, so you got to make sure that you've got your entity structure also matched up. Okay, your buy-sell agreement will depend on the number of owners. Like in Marco's case, there was just he and his brother, so they could, you know, they could plan their buy-sell agreement accordingly. But if you have a law firm, or if you have a firm where there are 10 doctors who are, you know, partners, then you have an entity style. You have a different type of a buy-sell. The one that really comes up a lot of times is that people don't think of all the exits that could possibly take place. You have death, you have disability, you have divorce, you have departure, default, and disqualification. Any of these things could happen. And if your buy sell agreement is not specific, the insurance company, even if you have an insurance company in play, they will not pay if it's the wrong, if it's not correctly structured. A big issue is the definition of disability. I mean, we're just working with a case where there's a surgeon who was hired by a hospital on a huge salary to do very exotic surgeries. He developed a tremor in his hand, so he couldn't do the surgeries. The hospital wanted to get rid of him, but he just said, "Hey, I'm not disabled. I can do whatever you want." He just couldn't do what the hospital had hired him for. But because they had not described disability correctly, there was no money at play there. Okay. Then the other thing is the valuation of the business. How are you doing the valuation of the business? This affects everyone. And even if, you know, the partners and the heirs and the employees are not affected, the IRS can jump in at any point, and that can really spoil the party. So getting a proper valuation is really important. Marco, you were speaking about this point. The agreement isn't funded. So you have a buy sell, but it's not funded. So where's the money going to come from? Who's going to pay? Who's going to write the check? And I mean, I don't even want to discuss this, but it happens. A lot of times, everything is in the head of the partners. They've been discussing it over drinks. They've thought of everything, but they haven't inked it. It isn't signed. It isn't documented so that it can, you know, be put in front of either a bank or an insurance company or whatever. So common falls with the buy sells. I'm going to play another video. And this is an interesting one.
So we have a succession plan here that was drawn up by professionals to, you know, if in fact something happens where I become disabled or I pass away, that, you know, the agency, you know, is transitioned to another one of the principals here in the agency.
That's when Mark and I started talking about doing a buy-sell agreement where I'm the one that would purchase the company if something were to happen to him.
Without a well-orchestrated, without a documented, without a finalized buy, sell, or shareholders agreement, the business may fail when that key owner passes away. Because there's no one there to take on that business. No one understands what their rights or responsibilities are. So now people are struggling to determine who should be taking over that business because there's no game plan.
If something was to happen, Mark, I think, yes, I think with all the people that are here now, Jimmy, I think the plan would be for him to be very involved or maybe own the company at that point. I think it would probably be a lot smoother since we've gone through it once. I'm pretty sure Mark has to have a plan for if something was to happen, because this office definitely knows about things happening unexpectedly.
In May of this year, I was diagnosed with cancer, and so a little bit scared, spent a couple of weeks in the hospital.
There was a couple months in there where we were not sure what stage it was, how serious it was, and what the outcome was going to be for him.
you don't typically think 47-year-olds, have colon cancer. So I think it's always an eye opener. You got to think one thing about what our industry is. We talk about death and disease and illnesses all the time in our particular, but that never really happens to me. It happens to the other guy.
He's technically cancer free, but as you know, the insurance companies don't look at it that way.
My current buy-sell agreement is basically funded with term insurance, and so it's on a 20-year time horizon, and so in the next certain coming years, that term insurance will probably have to be some of it will have to be converted. I'm uninsurable in this particular capacity, so I'm a walk and talk and billboard about term insurance's challenges because with my cancer, I can't convert it.
In that case, if there is no insurance with a buy-sell or shareholders agreement, you're going to have an illiquid estate. And what often happens is you're going to have a fire sale of that business he had worked on his entire life. An insurance policy leaves the death benefit to the corporation. The corporation uses the life insurance death benefit to acquire the stock from the estate of the decedent. Now, the owner's family, the deceased owner's family, has liquidity. The business has control of its stock.
Had we delayed that decision to put that succession plan in place, this could have happened where we're in a situation where we have an agreement in place, but we don't have the funding for it. And the funding is the key to the whole thing, because if something were to happen to him and we have an agreement that says I agree to pay his estate X amount, but I don't have the cash flow in the company to do that, then the company would cease to exist.
The good news is that I have I have insurance in place to protect for the immediate future, but I'll have to work to basically protect for long term. And that's why it's important to really, have good quality advice from your insurance agent on what type of products that you need.
Okay, so what I want to just tell you here is that the person had the buy sell, he had the insurance, but he had the wrong insurance. He developed cancer, okay, the guy, and he's got a term insurance which is not convertible. So although he thought he had all the boxes ticked, but he obviously never got the right advice. Maybe he went for the cheapest advice and got a non-convertible term insurance, right? It's slightly cheaper. Now, the minute you get diagnosed with life-threatening disease, you're not insurable. And then,
guys, did you hear that? That was very important. Once again, he said, once you get something like cancer, you're not insurable. Okay.
and then the whole thing changes. And I'm going to now talk of what the other alternatives are. But this gentleman had done whatever he thought he should be doing. So I'll reiterate here again, it is important to go to a good advisor, a person who has been around, who will give you good advice and listen to the advice. Cheapest is normally not the best. So if you're getting something which is much cheaper than everything else, ask him, hey, what am I not buying when I select this product? Because there's a reason why it's so cheap. So what this gentleman had here was a 20-year term policy which would expire after 20. He was 47 when he got diagnosed. At 67, there would be no insurance. He's not insurable at that age, and he's got cancer. So then the whole thing becomes a big mess. Okay. So now, how do you normally fund a buy-sell agreement? You could say, okay, I'm going to do a sinking fund that, I'm going to retire in 20 years. So every year I'm going to put aside $100,000 or $10,000 or whatever the value of the business is, and I'm going to put that in. What happens if you don't live those 20 years? Or there's an involuntary exit before that? The sinking fund doesn't work, or it may not work. You could borrow, you could go to a bank. Now, if you've got everything really well organized, you can go to a bank and you can borrow money. Okay. But easier said than done. And if the main partner or a partner gets disabled, or there's a death, or there's a change in the partnership or in the ownership structure, then there's a lot of uncertainty, and then borrowing becomes even very expensive. You could do an installment sale, okay? Or then you can just go to an insurance company and say, hey, give me a policy, give me a suitable policy for life and disability, and remove the uncertainty. So yeah, those are the options. I'm going to show you the slide now. This is a situation where the person gets disabled, okay? And there's no disability clause in the buy sell. So they have a buy sell without a disability. And just see what really goes on in this medical practice.
When Dr. Kramer became disabled and we realized he wasn't returning to the practice, there was a lot of stressful days and a lot of long discussions and how are we going to do this? We had a business situation. So suddenly I wasn't able to practice, and in our partnership agreement, I offered a deal to them and said, let me find my replacement. Let me bring them in as my associate. Let me mentor them. Let me sell my portion, to them, and I'll be out. The hardest part with that was they didn't control who I picked.
The buyout went as not as expected. We kind of always had envisioned that when the buyout was going to take place, that the disabled dentist or the leaving dentist would find his replacement. What we soon figured out was that because the other two of us had to work with this person, we were, equally as tied in. We were tied in from a personality standpoint, whereas the guy leaving was more just tied in from a financial standpoint. So we quickly kind of figured out that it made a lot more sense to buy him out.
And I think the tug of war occurred where they said, I'm not comfortable with you having full control over who you sell this practice to because we're stuck with them. And we want to have some control over who we bring in. And so I'm like, well, there's the contract. Here's our partnership agreement. Guess I'm done. Here's the number. You're going to cut me a check. When we formed our partnership, we had a buy-sell agreement as part of the contract that we had amongst ourselves. Our buy-sell agreement really only was in place for a death. I don't believe there was a disability clause. We weren't prepared to fund out of an insurance plan.
In the many years that I've worked with physicians and dentists, I find that there are a lot of them, when there are partnerships, that they do have a written buy-sell agreement of some sort that might include both a buyout in the event of death or disability. But the reality is very few of them have it funded with insurance the way in which they should. And they end up paying for it in the event of a death or disability with after-tax dollars. The best way that they could fund that is to have that insurance in place before such an event occurs.
We did purchase a disability policy for a buyout of the business in the event of a disability. And that was a group decision because it was 2 against 1. Business decision that you make. I think for them, unfortunately, since it happened to me, that would have been a very wise financial decision. Unfortunately, as a business, they had to take out a loan to buy me out. At the time when he became disabled, our building was virtually paid off, and so we were able to remortgage the real estate to fund the buyout. We did give him a lump sum payout and also a 5-year installment. So it was as if we were paying him his salary or a portion of his salary, though he wasn't generating the revenue.
When a medical practice starts to think about putting together a buy-sell agreement, there are some very important things they need to do. First and foremost, they need to get an accurate evaluation of what that practice is really worth as a whole and to each individual.
The formula that we used for the disability buyout was a formula we just kind of came up with, and it was based on a discount. So it wasn't a full fee.
You know, it wasn't a full, if I sold the practice tomorrow, here's what I would charge. You know, it was a discount because we realized the distress that it was going to cause. And it was like a fire sale. So I knew that.
Dr. Kramer, Dr. Shirley, and I all agreed that it was a fair evaluation and came up with an honest number that we could all still remain friends, if you will, after the transaction occurred, and we, you know, can have a clear conscience that nobody got taken advantage of.
I think in the end, I decided, let's just make this a clean cut. I'm going to take a hit. I got to sleep at night, and I sleep really well every night. So.
Okay, so there you are about what goes on if there's no disability in the buyout agreements, buy sell. Okay, so how are buy sell agreements normally funded? All right, so we've already spoken about this: life insurance, business cash flow, disability, or borrow funds. It's predominantly life insurance that funds these buy sell agreements. Business cash flow is there, and borrowing funds is like minuscule. It's very difficult to get money when the company is not stable. Okay, so if we just have to recap, all right, it's really important to have a good advisor who's advising you, how to get this structured. Make sure that your buy sell is comprehensive, it covers everything. Make sure that you really understand how the funding is going to work and the valuation of the business. Okay. What are you really going to get? I mean, these are really important things. These are things that you should spend time on. Don't take these lightly, because if these are not correctly done, then there's a lot of pain afterwards. But yeah, these are critical things that need to be in place. So that's what I had for buy sell. I don't know if Marco, you want to add something, or are there any questions
No,
based on what we've said?
there's two questions. Let me look at the chat. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Let me go back up. I don't want to. So let's see over here with emails on.
I see a question on stated value. Will
Yeah.
insurance pay stated value? Okay, so I think that's from Michael.
Yes.
Michael, insurance companies can price risk really well. I mean, that's why these companies exist. Okay, so it's not that you just give them a number and they'll just accept that number. That number is going to be cross-checked. There is going to be a full diligence that will go into what the value of the business is. How is that value determined? Who has done the valuation? Okay, so there's a lot of diligence that goes in before the insurance company agrees to get into an agreement, and then it's a binding agreement. Once the agreement is in place and the insurance company has agreed to what you said, they'll also price the insurance accordingly, right? So they'll price the risk accordingly. But once you have an agreement, and if it's a good company, they're going to pay. I mean, that's their business, right? So I don't know if there's anything else out here.
Does there need to be an independent valuation of the business prior that insurance agrees with? I think that's what you're talking about, right?
That is such a critical point. That is a very, very critical point.
So you have to have valuation. Oh, so the insurance amount needs to match. Okay, she wrote that. So I have that question. When me and my brother did it on the 4 family, we actually got 400,000 each, 800. And I think the property was only worth 550 at the time. We got too much insurance, Arjun. Was that okay or no?
So it depends on how it's done. So if the insurance is on the life, right, of the of person, then you can value up to 30 times your earning capacity. Okay.
Yep.
So you can so they're valuing your life also. So that's why you got to really understand. So basically what you did is that you both bought insurances on each other, And the insurance company would have looked at your income statement, would have said, okay, you know, how much money do you make? You want to buy this much insurance? Fine, you're good.
And it was back then, I don't know what it is now, but I was happy when it was affordable, you know. So it was,
So when a lot of this insurance can be term insurance, and term insurance
yeah.
is very cheap.
Yep.
And if you take it at the right time, and you know when you're not struggling and everything, insurable, healthy, it's not expensive.
Guys, if you're looking to buy businesses, if you have partners, even if it's multifamily, like certain multifamily, but especially businesses, me and Gino were set up the right way. My brother was adamant. My brother said when I was 30 years old, he's like, "You're going to speak to my guy who is very, very important, or I'm not going to be your partner." You guys are all excited about doing businesses. You're all excited in these business masterminds, acquisition masterminds. I hope they're talking about this in there. Arjun is a good friend. Book a networking call with him. Ask him questions. It's not just this was just one topic. He covers everything: term insurance, whole life, stocks. I mean anything. But especially build a relationship with him. If you guys are going to be using somebody for buy-sell agreements, I want you to. And by the way, like I told him, guys, you know me, I'm not getting commission, nothing. I'd rather we're building relationships. If you're going to use a random company, he's doing stuff for me. I want him to do stuff for the mastermind for my people because I like him and he's a friend. You know, so definitely reach out to him, and set up calls. Let me see if there's any other questions.
So I have a follow-up question. So that insurance is basically your personal life insurance, nothing related to business insurance, right?
Well, so you can. Okay, if you're doing buy sell, then it is business related. You can also do your personal insurance. Okay. Now you can also take the view like some of my clients say, okay, my business is worth 5 million. So they'll buy 5 million worth of insurance. They don't want to get into, they said, okay, fine, I'll just buy 5 million of insurance. So God forbid if I die, my wife and kids get 5 million. But if you've got partners, now the problem is that if you have, see, what is your vision of your business? If you want to say that, listen, I want to create a structure here. Now, I've got these, like, supposing your friends are working or your employees have been loyal to you for 10, 20 years. If something happens to the owner, then does the owner feel anything about the employees? People have lent you money. People have been your business partners. You have become rich because of them. So people feel obligated. You know, just like you want to make sure that you provide for your family, you want to make sure, you know, like I talk to business owners all the time. So I talk to them and I say, okay, we're going to talk about you and your family separately, but what do you want to do for your people? So the buy sell ensures that the company stays intact. So that is your vision for the future of the company. Now, if, you know, like was said in the video, like if you really don't care for the company and you say, okay, I'm just going to take my 5 million, you know, my wife will get it and, you know, we are fine. Who's going to run that company? Imagine what's going to happen after that. Who's going to drive the ship? See, as a business owner, you have a lot of responsibility. You're driving the car, you're steering the ship, you're flying the plane. The pilot goes. Who's going to be the co-pilot? The buy sell, if it's properly in place, will ensure that your business has a proper landing or it keeps flying. Not sure if I've been able to make the difference, explain the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll set up 101, Arjun, very soon.
Yes, you know, I mean, this is a very customized sort of solution. It's not one size fits all. So, you know, my email and my, Marco is going to be sending me your email addresses. So, you know, either you reach out to me or, you know, I'm going to try and, you know, connect with you people as soon as I get the email addresses. But feel free, just copy, you know, just
Yeah,
take a picture of this and.
Satya, when you jump on, you record it, but if Abhishek can jump on, you guys jump on together and pick his brain, because Satya, you guys just started, but if you're expanding now to another territory and you keep growing and growing, when my accountant says when a company just starts and you don't make a lot of money, everybody's like happy, there's no problems. When you start making money, that's when you got problems. Meaning like, oh shit, like what if something happens? What if something happens? So you want to get ready in the beginning phase when you're really not making a lot of money, because you're going to make a lot of money one day. You know what I'm saying? It's good to get educated now and get set up now for the day that you're going to be crushing it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Any
it.
other questions? Any other questions? Anyone?
I want to thank people for staying on. I want to thank people for coming. I want to thank Arjun. This was awesome. Arjun is now down in Florida. I lived in White Plains. He lived in Scarsdale. We go to the same gym, so it's pretty cool. We get to eat lunch at the beach often, which is really cool. He's a fellow New Yorker. He came down to Ponte Vedra before he beat me. He came down before me. So yeah, we have awesome lunches. We get to talk business all the time, and I know he's helping me with my kids with the whole life now, but I know he was kind of not impressed. I know quite a bit about this because I have good people that I pick their brains about. Like guys, even if you're not going to do it by early, get educated. Talk to smart people like Arjun in the field, because once you go to meetups and you're in a conversation about businesses and multifamily, the more you know, the smarter you sound, the more people want to hang out with you. So get educated. Arjun, thank you once again. In like 6 months, we're gonna pick another great topic. Now that we did an intro on the two basic ones, maybe we'll pick one that's a little more not advanced, but we'll pick another crucial topic that multifamily and business acquisition people need in 3 or 4 or 5 months or something. But I greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Bye-bye.
night. I really
Yeah.
Awesome.
appreciate it. Thank you for coming, guys. Greatly appreciate
Yeah.
you guys.
Have a
Marco,
good one.
thank you. I really enjoyed. Thank
So
you.
did I.
Appreciate
This
it.
is great. Take care.
Okay.